Today is April 7th. Welcome to Big Book Daily. My name is Rob. I am an alcoholic. It's a thrill, honor, and joy to be here with you today as we journey through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. Today out of the Big Book, we're going to be reading Personal Story Section 2, They Stopped in Time. We'll actually be finishing that story today, The Missing Link, pages 286 to 288. And we will begin Story 2 out of Part 2, Fear of Fear. That's page 289. And out of the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions, we're going to be beginning Step 12 by reading page 106. So with all that, I hope you all are doing well this morning. Hey, life is good over here. As I'm recording, it is a Friday. I've got my Ninja Turtle cup full of coffee. Life is good. So let's get to the good stuff. So if you remember from yesterday's reading in the Big Book, The Missing Link, we were at a part where our friend finally decides to go into the meeting. And the last line is pretty powerful. He says, "Had I not gone in, I believe that I would not be alive today." So, this really is a matter of life and death for him and for me and so many others, So we're going to continue that thought on 286 and finish out this story. So let's get right to it. The room was very smoky and filled with apparently happy people. Finding a seat in the back, I sat down and tried to make sense of the format. When the chairperson asked if there was any newcomers present, I looked around and saw some hands go up. But I certainly wasn't ready to raise my hand and draw attention to myself. The meeting broke up into several groups, and I followed one group down the hall and took a seat. They opened a book and read a chapter titled Step 7. After the reading, they went around the table for comments, and for the first time in my life, I found myself surrounded by people that I could really relate with. I no longer felt as if I was a total misfit, because here was a room full of people who felt precisely as I did, and a major weight had been lifted. I happened to be in the last chair around the table to speak, and, confused by the reading, all I could say was, "What the heck are shortcomings?" A couple of members, realizing that I was there for my first meeting, took me downstairs and sat down with me and outlined the program. I can recall very little of what was said. I remember telling these members that this program they outlined sounded like just what I needed, but I didn't think that I could stay sober for the rest of my life. Exactly how was I supposed to drink if my girlfriend breaks up with me, or if my best friend dies, or even through happy times like graduations, weddings, and birthdays? They suggested that I could just stay sober one day at a time. They explained that it might be easier to set my sights on the 24 hours in front of me, and to take on these other situations when and if they ever arrived. I decided to give sobriety a try, one day at a time, and I've done it that way ever since. When I entered Alcoholics Anonymous, I had done some damage physically, had a bouquet of mental quirks, and was spiritually bankrupt. I knew I was powerless over alcohol and that I needed to be open-minded toward what people suggested for recovery. However, when it came to spirituality, I fought it nearly every step of the way. Although raised in an ethnic and religious Jewish household, I was agnostic and very resistant to anyone and anything that I perceived to be imposing religious beliefs. To my surprise, Alcoholics Anonymous suggested something different. The idea that religion and spirituality were not one and the same was a new notion. My sponsor asked that I merely remain open-minded to the possibility that there was a power greater than myself, one of my own understanding. He assured me that no person was going to impose a belief system on me, and that it was a personal matter. Reluctantly, I opened my mind to the fact that maybe, just maybe, there was something to the spiritual lifestyle. Slowly but surely, I realized that there was indeed a power greater than myself, and I soon found myself a full-time God in my life and followed a spiritual path that didn't conflict with my personal religious convictions. Following the spiritual path made a major difference in my life. It seemed to fill that lonely hole that I used to fill with alcohol. My self-esteem improved dramatically, and I knew happiness and serenity as I'd never known it before. I started to see the beauty and usefulness in my own existence and tried to express my gratitude through helping others in whatever ways I could. A confidence and faith entered my life and unraveled a plan for me that was bigger and better than I could have ever imagined. It wasn't easy. It's never been easy. But it gets so much better. Since that first meeting, my life has completely changed. 3 months into the program, I started college. While many of my college classmates were experimenting with alcohol for the first time, I was off at meetings and AA get-togethers, becoming active in service work and developing relationships with God, family, friends, and loved ones. I rarely thought twice about this. It was what I wanted and needed to do. Over the last 7 years, nearly everything I thought I could not stay sober through has happened. Indeed, sobriety and life are full of up and downs. Occasionally, depression can creep back into my life and requires outside help. However, this program has provided me with the tools to stay sober through the death of my best friends, failed relationships, and good times like birthdays, weddings, and graduations. Life is exponentially better than it ever was before. I'm living out the life I used to fantasize about, and I have a whole lot of work still in front of me. I have hope to share and love to give, and I just keep going one day at a time, living this adventure called life. All right, beautiful stuff. We are going to jump right into story number 2, Fear of Fear, page 289. Story 2, Fear of Fear. This lady was cautious. She decided she wouldn't let herself go in her drinking, and she would never take that morning drink. I didn't think I was an alcoholic. I thought my problem was that I'd been married to a drunk for 27 years. When my husband found AA, I came to the second meeting with him. I thought it was wonderful, simply marvelous for him. But not for me. Then I went to another meeting, and I still thought it was wonderful. For him, but not for me. That was on a hot summer evening down in Greenwich Village Group, and there was a little porch out there in the old meeting place on Sullivan Street. And after the meeting, I went out to the steps for some air. In the doorway stood a lovely young girl who said, "Are you one of us Souses too?" I said, "Oh goodness, no. My husband is. He's in there." She told me her name, and I said, "I know you from somewhere." It turned out that she had been in high school with my daughter. I said, "Eileen, are you one of those people?" And she said, "Oh yes, I'm in this." As we walked back through the hall, I, for the first time in my life, said to another human being, "I am having trouble with my drinking too." She took me by the hand and introduced me to the woman that I am very proud to call my sponsor. All right, that's all the reading we're going to do out of the big book today. Let's jump right into the 12 and 12. Today we are going to begin Step 12's content here, so we're just reading page 106. Step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. The joy of living is the theme of AA's 12th step, and action is the key word. Here, we turn outward toward our fellow alcoholics who are still in distress. Here, we experience the kind of giving that asks no rewards. Here, we begin to practice all 12 steps of the program in our daily lives so that we and those about us may find emotional sobriety. When the 12th step is seen in its full implication, it is really talking about the kind of love that has no price tag on it. Our 12th step also says that as a result of practicing all these steps, we found something called a spiritual awakening. To new AAs, this often seems like a very dubious and improbable state of affairs. "What do you mean when you talk about a spiritual awakening?" they ask. Maybe there are as many definitions of spiritual awakening as there are people who have had them. But certainly each genuine one has something in common with all the others. And these things which they have in common are not too hard to understand. When a man or woman has a spiritual awakening, the most important meaning of it is that he has now become able to do, feel, and believe that which he could not do on his unaided strength and resources alone. All right, some great stuff here already. I know when I came into the program, I had no idea what spiritual awakening and spiritual experiences were. So I'm glad that there was a breakdown of this, and I'm glad that eventually the appendix would kind of break down the difference between the two as well in the big book. You know, at step 12, it's a lifetime step for me. Having had a spiritual awakening, as the result of these steps, we try to carry this message. We try to help others with this program and practice these principles in all our affairs. That's part of carrying the message too, that living amends and trying to put these principles, these 12 steps, in action in everything, not just the alcohol. That's just, for me, that's just the first part. But also practicing these principles in my resentments, my selfishness, my self-centeredness, my lust, my gluttony, all the 7 deadly sins, whatever you want to call them. But trying to practice these things in all of my affairs, it's a lifetime thing. But I feel like the God of my understanding is chiseling away once I finally let him have the chisel. But going back to the big book real fast, speaking of that spiritual awakening, this guy in the first story, he doesn't know what the spiritual awakening is, and thank God for the members. They take him aside and they kind of explain and outline the whole program for him. And through time, it seems like he's getting it for sure. And that last paragraph is powerful. Over the last 7 years, nearly everything I thought I could not stay sober through has happened. Some of those fears he had did come true. But the God of his understanding kept him sober. And a lot of the other folks in the fellowships helped him out through those hard times. Life never got easier, but it's got so much better. As a matter of fact, he says that right here. It wasn't easy. It's never been easy, but it gets so much better. For me, that has been sobriety in a nutshell right there. Life never got easier, but it gets better. Those problems will come for me, and they have, but I'm not alone. I have an incredible fellowship of people that have my back, that I consider family, that I could tell anything at any time. And they won't bat an eye. They'll pray for me. They'll give me good guidance, and they'll be there for me. And then even better than that, I have a higher power now and a relationship with my higher power that will never leave me or forsake me. But this story right here, he finishes it out by saying, occasionally depression can creep back into my life and requires outside help. That makes me think, hey, not just a fellowship, but we can get some therapy or outside professional help. We're never alone. We always have tools in front of us. However, this program has provided me with the tools to stay sober through the death of my best friends, failed relationships, and good times like birthdays, weddings, and graduations. Love this next line. Life is exponentially better than it ever was before. I'm living out the life I used to fantasize about. And I have a whole lot of work still in front of me. I hope to share and love and to give. And I just keep going one day at a time, living this adventure called life. I don't think anything else needs to be said. And that's exactly how I feel. My friends, if you're sober today, you're a miracle. And I'm sure the people who love you are very proud of you. Thank you so much for joining me in this lifeboat of recovery, and I certainly look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow.